822. Thank you guys. Best tools, all caps, in the industry. Special thanks to Neil Orfield and Draftaholics for the Thursday night live before lock. Bam. First place, chopping with himself. Talking what, $9,500 there. Huge win on Thursday Night Football. And to wrap this one up, it's Nick Lepre, Notorious Fantasy himself, in the Pat Mayo Experience Listener League. $5,000. Man, what a way to close out week 13. Remember, stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame. Use the avatar wherever it is you play. And when you win, get that free month. We'll induct you right here. Welcome to all of you, and welcome back to those of you who have been here before. We'll see you next week for another round.
Clock is at 5. No, it's at 6. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to MMA Live Before Lock for UFC 282. I am your host, Josh Harris. Jason is, I think, with an NFL team. I don't exactly know, but I'm filling in for him. Joining me, as always, is our resident fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. How you doing today, Pete?
What's up, buddy? How are you? Yeah, Jason's traveling with the Bucks, so I believe they're facing the Niners this week. So I think he had to get out there a little bit early.
Yeah, so I'm usually on standby when he has to travel with other teams. I don't mind. We have a pay-per-view card. This is a good card. Jason will be back next week, I believe. For a pay-per-view card, this is actually kind of a bit lackluster. The main event was supposed to be Yuri Prochazka against Glover Teixeira, but Yuri hurt his shoulder really bad, and they just scrapped that fight altogether. They moved the co-main event, Magomed Ankalaev against Jan Blachowicz, up to the main event. And for the interim, or actually it's for the light heavyweight title, Yuri will come back in like a year or whenever it is. They said his shoulder injury was so bad, but when he comes back, he'll get a title shot. That's the title shot. The co-main event, Paddy Pimblett, Jared Gordon. Like, you could almost argue, besides the title fight, that last week's card in Orlando was a bit stronger. There are a lot of good fights on this card. It is actually pretty tough for DFS because there's not many like super big trustworthy names. So I think this is going to be a pretty good card from an MME standpoint on DraftKings, at least. So Which fight are you looking to the most?
Yeah, I mean, so from top to bottom, it's like it's not the best or strongest card. As a purist, like of course, I'm really intrigued anytime there's fights and we can make some money on it, of course. But a little disheartening that the contests aren't filling over on DraftKings, but we can take advantage of that by having some overlay, which is great. But I definitely want the MMA product as a whole to continue to grow. So for a pay-per-view card, I feel like it's a little bit of a letdown outside of Patty Pimblett. Not too many notable names that a lot of people feel comfortable about. Not a lot of fights that a lot of people will be circling and say, yeah, I want to watch this one. It's just a mediocre card. We've seen better ones at the Apex and in Vegas in general. So we shall see. The card, if we didn't have any cancellations, it was going to be a great card. But this is sometimes the cards get hit from Maine to Spain, and the UFC can only do what they can do. Thankfully, Alex Morono stepped up on relative short notice to face Santiago Ponzinibbio, which was going to be another cancellation. So, yeah, I mean, as far as which fight I'm intrigued about, there are several. I want to see how Raul Rosas Jr. looks in his debut. Lots of hype around this kid. I feel like he is what Chase Hooper was supposed to be. But it's a stiff test. I want to see how Darren Till looks. I think it's a difficult matchup for Till, but I really like Till from like a personal standpoint. But probably the fight that I am really, really intrigued about is watching Bryce Mitchell, Ilia Topuria. So like I want to see how that one goes. Because I think that everybody's, starting to find a matchup where Bryce Mitchell is going to get exposed, and we haven't really found it at all because he just chain wrestles like the best of them. And this could be the matchup where he runs into a stiff test in Ilia Topuria, but can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, we'll get to that fight in a little bit. That is the fight that I'm looking to the most as well. Raul Rosas Jr., when he was on Dana White's Contender Series, was 17, and he looked pretty good. Now he's making his UFC debut at 18 against Jay Perrin. That should be an interesting fight. Jay Perrin 0-2 in the UFC, but he is a gamer, so that should be fun. Let's start with the main event, but before we do, make sure to give us a like and subscribe, so you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. All of our shows are available in podcast form, except for Live Before Locks. So yeah, just make sure you smash that like button. It helps us out a lot. It helps us give you free content like this. So please smash that like button and subscribe. And let's talk about these fights. Main event, light heavyweight championship belt on the line. Jan Blachowicz. I keep wanting to say Miguel Ankalaev, but it's Magomedov. From DraftKings perspective, it's a bit like, I think this is a better real life fight than DraftKings fight because Ankalaev is priced up at 9,200, and I really like him. He should be undefeated in the UFC. He won all of his fights minus his UFC debut where he got triangle choked by Paul Craig in the last couple seconds of the third round, which was weird. Like if he just like waited 1 second or went to sleep, he probably would have won the decision. But the biggest issue that I have with Ankalaev for DraftKings anyway is his output. He only lands 3.64 strikes per minute. But when he does throw, he can just shut your lights off. So you saw it against Iwan Kupate-Laba twice. You saw it against Anthony Smith. He just took out. So from a main event perspective on DraftKings, like I don't know if I'm going to be, if I was making 150 lineups, I don't know if I'd be over the field on this because I feel like Jan Blachowicz is one of those guys who will adhere to that pace. So it could be a pretty low scoring main event. What do you see in here?
Yeah, so I mean, like the main event for me is not a priority. Some weeks I am smashing it. It comes down to two things for me: the pacing of the fight and the salary of the fight. The A side of the fight in Magomed Ankalaev is who I'm projecting to win, and he's priced at 9,200. We unlike some weeks, we have some nice 9,000 options where we can kind of pivot to earlier finishers. I'm expecting Magomed Ankalaev to take his time a little bit. He likes to methodically pick his opponents apart and then start to, add some volume down the stretch. But, very, very technical fighter, more of a technician than a finisher. he can find finishes when his opponents get reckless. I mean, back-to-back knockouts over Ion Cutelaba, but that's more so on Cutelaba's nature than Magomed Ankalaev's aggressiveness. Picking up a nice TKO over Anthony Smith was great. That's his most recent bout. But like we have seen in the past where he's okay with going the distance, totally fine with getting that experience in there. So I'm expecting a Magomed Ankalaev win, mixing in several takedowns. The one thing that could actually blow up in our face if we are going a little underweight to Magomed Ankalaev and Jan Blachowicz is that left kick that Ankalaev possesses. And that left kick can be a big difference maker here. One liver kick, one head kick. Jan Blachowicz is a little susceptible to those kicks. So I'm expecting Ankalaev to go out there and win, but I'm pretty sure most of the world is expecting that as well. And most people in general have counted Jan Blachowicz out in a lot of his fights. I know I have. I've been, trying to get away from him and, counting against that Polish power, and it blows up in my face time and time again. I mean, the Glover Teixeira loss was, I think, the first time where I actually finally got it. But like the Thiago Santos loss back in the day in 2019 is where I was like, okay, I'm okay with getting away from this guy. Then it seems like he started to find some luck, and when preparation meets opportunity, you have luck inside the cage. And I'm constantly looking at fight film saying, yeah, I mean, he's all right. He's good, but I feel like other people are better than him, and he just shows up on fight night. So I'm counting Jan Blachowicz out again, and I'm looking at the ownership, and that's kind of where I'm at. It's kind of where I'm at. I'm not super underweight to that. I am underweight to the massive ownership we are seeing towards Ankalaev, though.
Yeah, and Blachowicz in that Teixeira fight, like I don't even think Teixeira had the choke fully in before he tapped. Like it was a very quick tap.
Right.
Can Ankalaev get him down? Like Ankalaev has some good wrestling. He just doesn't use it very often. Blachowicz is pretty susceptible to the takedown. He defends takedowns at 66%, which is an okay rate, but I think if Ankalaev chooses to wrestle, that's another wrinkle. But the problem is Ankalaev doesn't really wrestle. He lands under one takedown per 15 minutes. So that left kick, like you mentioned, is a dangerous weapon. We saw Jan Blachowicz use it when he became champion against Dominic Reyes. Absolutely just destroyed his body with that kick. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'm expecting a pretty methodical pace here. Of course, I'm probably going to be underweight. And that always scares me in a 5-round matchup, I think. But the thing is, if you think Ankalaev is going to win by KO, which is certainly possible, I feel like it's going to be later in the fight than in the first round.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm projecting is more of a third, fourth round finish if there's a finish. Some fighters are okay with coasting and taking their time. I think Ankalaev will be wise to not be reckless, and if he lands some takedowns, he's okay with it, getting some top control. And I think his cardio has improved. He looked pretty damn good against Thiago Santos, but I wouldn't count Jan Blachowicz out of winning a couple rounds in some close exchanges. So I'm going to see 4 rounds to 1, 3 rounds to 2 for Ankalaev. I don't see a quick finish. It could definitely happen. But yeah, I'm going to be a little bit underweight to that massive ownership just because I like some other 9,000 and even high 8,000 fighters.
Yeah. I think the KO loss to Blachowicz or to Thiago Santos by Blachowicz is the only time he's been finished by strikes in the UFC. So he is very durable. We got a couple super chats here, so let's get to that real quick. The Claw 28 with a $2 super chat. Thank you very much. Says Curtis or Mitchell for double DK. Not sure what that means.
For me,
it says for double
up. I would imagine that I'd
want
the floor of Bryce Mitchell just because of the takedown floor. I don't think that he's going to get blanked in the takedown department. Even if he loses, I would imagine he will get some points. Curtis, I don't mind Curtis as an underdog, but from getting some safe points, I would probably say that I'd go towards Mitchell in a cash game.
Yeah, I agree. Just the one thing that I worry about, and Ilia Topuria has never really, he fought Damon Jackson, who's a good wrestler, but Topuria got him out there almost instantly. 100% takedown defense. Now he's fought Jai Herbert. Ryan Hall is a ground wizard, but he doesn't have very good wrestling. Damon Jackson is a pretty good wrestler, but he didn't get a chance to even settle in. Yusuf Zalal, he out-wrestled pretty bad. Bryce Mitchell, constantly underrated in his wrestling. The dude is just the Energizer Bunny. So there's like, if Mitchell doesn't land a takedown or two in this fight, I'd be absolutely shocked.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really compelling matchup. And like, if you go back and watch the Yusuf Zalal fight, granted it was on short notice, but I do think that there are some positives to take from that, even in any of those grappling exchanges when Ilia Topuria was engaging or you had Yusuf Zalal attempting. I look at it and I look at the fight tape of the recent stretch of Bryce Mitchell, and I'm like, Bryce is getting that taken. He's getting that takedown. Like, and I think just the pace and the power, I think he's got that farm strength about him. I really do. When you saw Edson Barboza's eyes go wide, it's like, yeah, that's a different type of strength. Like that's that Khabib Nurmagomedov type of top pressure. So, I'm picking Bryce Mitchell from an underdog standpoint of getting a little bit aggressive. I was leaning towards Ilia Topuria earlier in the week, but like, I have to find some underdogs that I want to get to. And I think Bryce Mitchell is going to be pretty damn popular today.
Yeah, I do too. He's got that Arkansas. I don't know where I'm going with that, but he's got that sneaky power from the down south. Maybe it's because he hunts his own food. I don't know, but man, he rocked. What's his face? You just mentioned his name.
Barboza. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, Barboza.
Yeah.
And that was even before he attempted his first takedown. That's how he got his first takedown, like literally just knocking him down in the first round. And then he just grinded Barboza to a fine pace. But yeah, let's get to the next super chat. A $10 super chat from CS111 said, "What up, Pete and Josh? If playing 13 $555 lineups, how many of each guy in the main event and how many fade the main event? Coach S."
Let me think. I'd probably go 3 Ankalaev, 2 Jan Blachowicz, and then the rest without. That's personally how I'm going with my exposure. I don't know if you agree with me, but maybe I might even stretch it to 4. 4 Ankalaev, 2 Jan, the rest without. So 7 without.
Yeah, I think having exposure to the main event is fine. When we're saying underweight to the field, we're not going to full on fade it in multiple lineups, but I think you can get away with around having, only 5 lineups with the main event out of 13, 7, 8 faded. Like if you're really have a lean on Ankalaev here and you think, you don't trust the high end options like Rosas or Patty Pimblett, I think you can go a little bit heavier on Ankalaev. But like, I think, on this card, there's some good mid-range builds where you can get away from Ankalaev if he does take this to decision or have like a 4th round knockout. We saw him get like 80 DK points in a 5-round main event before, so it could happen again.
Yeah, I mean, 5 rounds to work with. More potential for points, definitely. It depends on the work rate, the pace of the fight, what's at stake. Does he get dropped a lot or does he get dropped one time and then that kind of like lights a fire and makes him a little bit more of an urgent fighter? Like certain situations that we can't really project can make a fighter react differently. Where they can coast in other matchups, but if they start getting hit with some damaging shots, they really got to push the pace to convince these judges to try to get a 10-8 or try to get a finish. So I'm okay with getting to the main event, but I'd probably say most of the time it's not optimal.
And like Ankalaev is going to be pretty popular just based off his box scores because he's had a couple knockouts in a row. But like you mentioned, it's kind of on the opponents there. Iwan Kutelaba is an absolute crazy person, just runs right into his punches. Anthony Smith, probably his own worst enemy, his toughness, and he'll just march forward and get smacked. Jan Blachowicz more on the like, okay, you want to dance a little bit? I'm fine with that. So this could be a pretty slow start to that one. Let's move to the next super chat here from Noah Levinson, $4.99. Thank you very much. Are we not worried Rosa's opponents have a combined losing record? Here's the thing. He's 18.
Right.
So like Jay Perrin's a man. This kid's a boy. Like, yeah, like he looked really good on Dana White's Contender Series, but like he's not even old enough to like know what he needs to like. Yeah, he's been in combat training his whole life, but 18 years old, like some fighters don't even get it until their late 20s. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy that he's in the UFC basically at 17. I don't really like worry about it, but like Jay Perrin, I think he beat Orichi Lang in his last, like, arguably. Like, obviously the judges disagreed, but like, this guy like has had multiple fights in the UFC. He's gotten a decision in the UFC. This kid has like limited tape on the regional scene, and he's like half his age or double his. Yeah.
I mean, for me, right? Like, I'm not worried about Rosa's strength of schedule just because I know as a coach, a fighter, even like a fellow matchmaker, like I understand it's inevitable. You're going to have fighters facing off against anybody who will accept the fight. Sometimes it's really difficult to find a fight, and it's part of the building process and getting that experience necessary to perform under the lights. So almost everybody you're going to go and deep dive on their records early within their career. In their first 10 fights, they're fighting guys, off the street, losing records, guys being brought in just to, make their opponents get some experience under the lights. It's just how it is. For me, I'm not worried about the age so much. I'm worried just because I do believe in the skill set, even though he's super young, just because I've dealt with young training partners, throughout my camps as well. Like, some of my best rounds, no lie, were with like some of these jiu-jitsu phenoms at 17, 16, 18. So I know that it's possible. There comes a time, though, where that age becomes a worry when you're going up against a guy who has seen everything. And I understand Jay Perrin's fought a ton regionally here in New England. He's skilled, but his kryptonite is the style of Rosas. So that's the issue for me. It's like, yeah, you have a guy who's super young in green, if you will, from a big stage experience level, but it's like the worst matchup for Jay Perrin because when he can get backpacked and controlled, he loses. And this was something on the regional scene as well. Like, if this is a striking matchup, yeah, of course I'm picking Jay Perrin. But I just don't think that it's going to happen. The grappling of Rosas is going to make Perrin, a little gun shy. And we'll see what happens from there. And the kid pushes a crazy pace. He's not from some random gym. He's from 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. So like, I actually think that this lifelong mixed martial artist is going to, I think he's going to break the slate personally. I think Rosas is going to break the slate today. And, we shall see if I'm right. He's priced like a fighter that needs to break the slate, but I'm excited to see him, perform against a guy in Jay Perrin.
Yeah. Jay Perrin also likes to wrestle, which we saw Rosas off his back in Dana White's Contender Series for a little bit. He kind of was playing that jiu-jitsu game a little bit, but then he did reverse him. I do worry that Perrin's going to like wrestle himself into an awful position. And but, Rosa's dad, I believe, is a boxing coach or is his boxing coach. So, I mean, I don't think Rosas is going to be like completely dead on the feet like Chase Hooper is. Like, Chase Hooper, his last fight, decided he wanted to be a striker and got his head knocked off his shoulders. But like, Rosas knows what his bread and butter is, and he'll go for it.
See, and that's important to me. When you know your path to victory and you know what brought you to the dance, and whenever you have a guy like Perrin in this matchup is the striker, but a lot of times he is the one engaging in grappling. Now, I think that his defensive skills, because there are some skills, Perrin is good. I think he's solid. I just don't think this is a smart matchup. He can get back to his feet, and I think that can actually increase the fantasy production from Raul Rosas. The control time, the repeated takedowns, the mat returns, the scrambles. Like, if advances were still around, I would be in love with this matchup. Yeah. But that day is gone. But we don't want people to wipe out their opposition so much. It's nice when they get a quick win, but it's also nice when they're met with a little bit of resistance so they can start to accrue those fantasy points. And for me, that's kind of what I take into consideration, similar to like Ilia Topuria. Going to be, super skilled. If he does get taken down, he'll get back to his feet and he might get repeatedly taken down. Whereas like Barboza got taken down and controlled. So, that's kind of like how I take certain matchups into consideration for my projections. And I'm gonna get to Raul Rosas, a lot.
Yeah, I think I am too. I haven't fully decided what I'm doing with this top range, but let's get to the next super chat. Chris Summerman, $2. Thank you very much. How many DK points are the camo shorts worth?
I mean, props to Bryce Mitchell for
Yeah.
getting camo shorts. He's one of the few fighters that can actually request things, and it was awesome. I'm happy for him. And somebody said it's a cheat code. That's cheating. His opponents can't see him in the cage. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think Dana White's scared of him. So that's why he got the camo shorts. He's nuts.
Yep.
Next super chat, Hollywood Will, $2. Thank you very much. Needs your Thursday shows. Haven't seen it. Still on. I think they're on a little hiatus right now. I don't know. Maybe they'll be back. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So our Thursday shows right now at the moment are on a little hiatus. I'm hoping that, in the future, we're brought back for the Thursday shows. But in the meantime, our Thursday shows are on Jason and I's channel called Fight HQ. I still do, my best bets for Odd Shopper. And then on Saturdays, we are here for Live Before Lock, leading up to every card to help you guys make your lineups and answer your DFS questions.
Yep. And before we move on, let's talk a little bit about BetMGM because there are a lot of you here. 420. It's a nice number. You can get a risk-free bet from BetMGM of up to $1,000 and 2 months of Stokastic Platinum for free. It is so easy to do. It's a risk-free bet, too. So if you're risk-averse and you want to put $1,000 on Raul Rosas Jr. tonight, and for some reason he loses, a refund will be issued in site credit. It's really easy. You just have to create a free Stokastic membership. Click the link in the description. Like, if you click the link in the description, it'll take you step by step, but all you got to do is create a Stokastic membership using the form below, or as most of you already do, you can just log in if you have one. Once you log in, click the BetMGM button that appears. Looks like the Lannister sigil, big lion. Complete the necessary steps with BetMGM. Then you got to create a BetMGM sports account. You've created sports accounts before. You deposit at least $10 and make your first paid bet. If you want your risk-free bet $500, you deposit $500 and bet it. 10 to 1,000, depending on your risk adverse. Then your bet must settle to qualify for the subscription. Then you'll get an email from BetMGM, not Stokastic. So check your junk folder if you don't see it. Instructions for redeeming your 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Click the link in the description for more details and to sign up. Can't stress enough, if you want to do this, which is an awesome deal, just click the link in the description. It'll take you step by step. So let's talk about, and there's, the other Josh with his thumbs up on the screen. Let's talk about this top range here because it is kind of important, and there are a lot of names that maybe you can't really trust, like Patty Pimblett, 9,100. I want to get behind Jared Gordon here today, but he's just too slow, in my opinion. Then you have Raul Rosas Jr. at 9,000. You have Simon, I think, or Cameron Simane. I remember watching this fight on Dana White's Contender Series because I had a bet on his opponent, and Simane just melted the guy in the third round at 9,300. Then you have Edmund Shabazian, another non-trustworthy fighter at 9,400, although he might be fighting the worst light heavyweight in the UFC right now. What do you got any strong leans besides Rosas in this top range?
Yeah, so I mean, like, Edmund Shabazian's my favorite inside the distance play. I like his camp switch up. He's now a part of Extreme Couture. In addition to that, like, I think getting away from the other Edmund and Ronda Rousey's old Glendale fight team, like, getting away from that toxic environment is super important. Getting around good training partners, Extreme Couture, Eric Nixick, other training partner, like they're gonna have you prepped. You're gonna be sparring all the time, and I'm pretty sure he was sparring Magomed Ankalaev leading up to this fight. So like, I really like Edmund Shabazian, but the price is a little restrictive from a construction standpoint. I think he wins inside the distance. So one of my best bets was Edmund Shabazian inside the distance, was like -115. I like it, but if it doesn't happen soon enough, or quick enough, I should say, we could not have a salary matching a score matching the salary, justifying that salary. So I'm expecting 100 points. If it happens in round 2 or 3 without multiple knockdowns or a takedown or something crazy, then we could just have a little bit closer to 98 points or so. So if you're just taking points in general and you just want to start your lineups off in a great spot, hard to get away from Shabazian. But if you want to pivot to some higher ceiling plays, I think there's some there. Cameron Simon is a guy that I'm going a little light on today, and I could be completely wrong. But I actually like his opponent a little bit more than him, just because I think the odds are wide. So like I'm gonna get to the underdog and Steven Kozlow just because he's undefeated grappler, competes all the time, and has great top pressure, excellent submissions. And actually he's taking this fight on short notice, but this is the third short notice fight that he has been ready for. Was going to accept a short notice bout against Mario Batista, was a little heavy. Said to himself, I got to get prepped and ready. So then a second short notice call came a couple weeks ago against Christian Rodriguez. He was ready. He accepted. They didn't choose him. Next thing you know, Cameron Simon's opponent is, lost. So UFC calls Kozlow. He's already prepped and ready. So I think the 6,900 is just, talking to somebody who is accepting it on short notice and showing up for a paycheck. This kid's actually prepared. And I just think the odds are wide. I still think Simon should be favored, but anytime you have somebody who's at 6,900, who I view as like a 7,400, I'm going to get to him. So back to your question of the 9,000 options, lighter on the main event in Ankalaev. I like Shabazian. I'm lighter on Simon. Paddy Pimblett facing my boy and my former roommate in Jared Gordon. So naturally I'm biased, and I hope that Gordon wins. Gordon's super hittable. He's slower for the division, but he puts out a ton of volume, and he's going to press you back. So if you are a fraud, Gordon will expose you. I am worried about the lead leg head kick of Paddy Pimblett, in addition to the back takes and the submission skills of Paddy Pimblett. So I think Paddy should be favored. I'm getting to Jared Gordon to win a decision. Gordon's not a finisher, but he can win a decision. So I will get to Gordon from a long shot standpoint and root for my buddy. I have plenty of lineups with my buddy in there, just hoping that he can pull it off.
Yeah, I want to back Jared Gordon so bad today. I worry that Paddy is going to be quick enough to get a back take, but Gordon is tough as they come. He does have good output. He's very high volume. He's got a big melon to get hit though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't know what I want to do with Paddy, because like I've faded him the first few fights in his UFC. Like eventually he's going to run into somebody that's just going to absolutely just floor him, whether that's today or his next matchup. Simon, I also am fading, not outright, but like I was on his opponent in Dana White Contender Series. I think it was that, I forget his name. It was Joshua Wang Kim, right? The karate guy. And the karate guy just kind of like the spinning stuff, and he got tired, and that was that. Kozlow, if he wins, it's going to be, I think, by submission early. So that fight, curtain jerker. I always get nervous about having a lot of exposure to the first fight, because your night could be over pretty quickly. But I like getting exposure to the underdog there. Let's talk a mid-range here. And one thing I wanted to get your opinion on as a fighter. How did Alex Hernandez make 145? And he looked pretty good on the scale.
Yeah, I mean, he might be in one of the most difficult matchups for a debuting featherweight, because he has a ton of mass. Like, he's a big guy, not a tall guy, but he was always thick for lightweight. And it's really surprising that he made the featherweight limit. Now you're going up against a guy who has a relentless pace and work rate in Billy Quarantillo, when you are known for kind of tapering off as the fight goes on, having questionable cardio. So it's like, yeah, the drop down in weight class can make you stronger and you can control your opposition better, but at a cost. Like whenever you lose a tremendous amount of weight, you are more susceptible to getting rocked. So that chin isn't the same, and your cardio is depleted. Like, I'll be surprised if he looks, better than ever from a work rate standpoint. So like, I think he's going to be stronger than Quarantillo, but I think as the fight goes on, we could see a second or third round Quarantillo stoppage. Admittedly, Alexander Hernandez is a guy I've kind of lost faith in, from he's not a trustworthy fighter at all. I can't really blame him for losing to Hinata Moicano, who I think is a beast. Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, Donald Cerrone. I mean, some names in there, good names, but his wins, Mike Breeden, Kritz Grutzmacher, decision over Trinaldo, arguable decision. So I don't know, man. I think that like we're seeing Quarantillo kind of on the up despite losing a decision and scoring 75 in a loss to Shane Burgos, whereas we've already seen the decline of Alexander Hernandez, and this is kind of like the comeback story.
Yeah, like Hernandez was brought in to lose to Beneil Dariush, and then he just floored him with in the first round. Went on to beat Olivier Aubin Mercier. And then I was on Hernandez for whatever reason. I was in the building against Donald Cerrone. Alexander Hernandez, way bigger than Donald Cerrone in that fight at 155.
Yeah.
Cerrone absolutely just took him to school there, and he kind of just fell off from there. But like, I was shocked to see him get announced at 145. He is a thick boy. I can't believe he actually looked decent on the scale. If I was a betting man, I was going to bet that he was going to miss weight. I don't know how he's going to react at 145 because Billy Q, Hernandez is going to be way stronger, but Billy Q is going to be so much faster.
Yeah, and I'll take the faster guy with the better cardio all day long. So give me Billy Q in the matchup.
Yeah, me too. I think, Hernandez might have some sneaky upside as a punt here, like a cheaper guy at 7,600, but I don't know. I think I like Billy Q better. Let's talk about your boy Darren Till here. It's always hurt.
I know.
But like the guy he's fighting, another one of these guys that I don't like. I think he's overhyped. Dricus Du Plessis. Like the thing with Till is I like him a lot. He just doesn't have a good style for DraftKings fantasy.
Yeah. So I love Darren Till. Like I really like him from a personality wise. The bromance between him and Khamzat Chimaev. Like I love all that. And I like Darren Till a lot. I think at middleweight, he's constantly going to be undersized. He's at that really tough point where it's too hard of a cut for him to make welterweight. And he's small for middleweight. So I think with some lifestyle changes and fully committing himself to strength and conditioning program, I know he's training and he's working out hard, but I look at him and I say, this guy can make welterweight. And like Darren Till, he is super susceptible to getting hit with big shots. And we've always heard about how fantastic his striking is. He's got a great left hand. He's a southpaw. He dances and moves really, really well. He's comfortable when he knows he's not going to get taken down. I actually think that Dricus Du Plessis can threaten with takedowns. He's clearly the more explosive of the two. He's the stronger of the two. On the regional scene, we did see Du Plessis get hit with a beautiful left-hand counter and dropped and knocked out. That is kind of, exactly what Darren Till can do here. I really just can't trust Darren Till. I have to tell you, I just can't trust him. I think that Du Plessis, he was circled on my list at 8,800 as a guy who can pick up a very nice win, whether he catches Darren Till and knocks him out bad, or he can incorporate takedowns and win a dominant decision. I think that he's in a good spot here at 8,800. If Till wins, I will be jumping up and down. I'm so happy. I made a few lineups for Till because the experience in an underdog situation, he's 6-4-1 in the UFC, but very, very inconsistent. And we actually are seeing a difficult matchup against Dricus Du Plessis. There are plenty of other ones that I'd much rather see Till in.
Yeah, the one knock about Du Plessis that I don't even know if it's a knock, but like his UFC debut against Marcus Perez, that was the weirdest knockout I've ever seen. Like, I just feel like Marcus Perez just kind of like, I don't know. It was a weird spinning, and then he knocked out Trevin Giles, which was nice. Then he went to the decision with Brad Tavares, which, Brad Tavares is kind of like the gateway to the top 15 of the middleweight division. So you can't get into the rankings without fighting Brad Tavares. I do hope Darren Till wins this one because I do like him. I just think it's a tough matchup, 1, and 2, Darren Till, not the best fantasy producer, lands 2.26 strikes per minute. You know what I mean? Has some low scores in wins over Kevin Gastelum, Stephen Thompson. Even in a 5-round, that was one of the slowest fights there was. So he can catch him, but like I'm not counting on it from a DFS perspective. Got another super chat here. My filler arc $4.99. Thank you very much. Curtis and Perrin are as my cheapos today. Do I have a chance? You always have a chance in MMA. Anything can happen. Would it shock me to see Jay Perrin win? No. Would it shock me to see Chris Curtis win? No. I think Curtis is pretty alive. I think Curtis is more alive than Perrin.
Yeah, agree with that. I'm happy you said that because for me, Perrin is a guy, just personally, I don't even know if I have a single lineup with him. I'm not 150 maxing today. If I was, of course, I'd be getting to him. But I have some Curtis because I have questions about Joaquin Buckley's chin going up against a very, very talented counter striker and Chris Curtis, who I've watched fight, in the same promotion as me in CES and put together like he went on a tear with amazing combinations. I think offensively, when he lets his hands go, he's great. But I have a feeling Joaquin Buckley might bully the hell out of him today. Like, I really do. It's like, when you just don't let your hands go, you don't give yourself a shot. You're so worried about getting caught. So I hope Curtis wins. But again, that's a fight that I think could go the distance. It's going to be weird.
Yeah. And Chris Curtis is very hittable.
Yeah.
So that's an issue because Buckley, as we've seen, packs some serious power. And, the one knock on Buckley is his chin in this fight anyway. Like, doesn't have the best takedown defense, but I don't think that Chris Curtis is going to want to stand and bang. If Chris Curtis lets his hands go, very live today. That's always been his knock in his long regional scene. He was going to retire too and end up in the UFC. Went on a pretty nice run. Won his first 4. He stuffed like all the takedown attempts from Rodolfo Vieira. Not that like all 20 of them. Not that Buckley's going to attempt 20 takedowns, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Buckley attempt a couple takedowns here. And Chris Curtis got pretty good takedown defense, so this could be a fun. It's one of my favorite fights on the card actually to watch. But let's talk some heavyweights here.
I'm glad.
Jair Rozenstruik. I'm just happy he's not in the main event. That dude, they just kept putting him in the main event. Boring fights here. He's fighting Chris Daukaus now. Rozenstruik, massive power. 8,700 here. I think he's pretty dependent on an early knockout. Chris Daukaus, on the other hand, pretty high output. And I feel like just from output alone, he makes me I think Daukaus is my preferred fighter in this fight. The problem is, like, if Rozenstruik connects on the chin, Daukaus is going to end up in the 4th row.
Yeah. All right. So let me see if you can kind of get behind what I'm thinking from a coach. But first, before I do that, we got 500 people in here checking us out live before lock, UFC 282. Josh and I breaking it down, answering your questions. If you can hit that like button, get us up to 150, 200 likes, super appreciate that. Now, to go back to kind of like my thinking of this matchup, Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Chris Daukaus, it's a terrible matchup for Chris Daukaus, mainly because from a coach, right? If I was a coach of Chris Daukaus and he just got flatlined against Derek Lewis, and then flatlined against a dominant wrestler in Curtis Blades, who has improved his striking. Bad knockouts. I don't think that, we'd be taking a lot more time off. He last fought in March. Okay, I would probably still side towards waiting a couple more months, a full year. I'm happy he took some time off. 9 months is fine. I personally like to be safe and make my fighters take more time off if they have a terrible loss like that. Stylistically, you don't want to get paired up with another knockout artist. One of the best ones with the death touch in the division. Chris Daukaus should be at 205. He should. He should hire a nutritionist. He talked about it in the media. He should be at 205. But since he's not doing that, we have to fight smart. Your job is on the line here. Your brother just made a poor decision and had facial surgery and then got hit with every left hand from Eric Anders that he threw. So he got finished because of that. So I don't know what's going on with who's making these decisions, but if Chris Daukaus is smart, he's trying to wrestle here against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Yes. He is trying to wrestle here. He's going to, if I'm in a part of, Chris Daukaus' corner, I'm saying be very smart defensively, pin him against the cage and work towards snaking that leg in there, reaping the leg, taking him down, getting on top, and then utilizing ground and pound towards a submission finish. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's a fantastic grappler. We just have not seen it because he's been the A side in most slugfests. Now it's time to show you're a well-rounded mixed martial artist. Do I think he does that though? I'm still saying no. But as far as underdogs, I'm hoping that Chris Daukaus is going to take this smart approach because I don't want to see him get, taken out of the UFC. And the best way to get a safe win is to utilize your grappling against a guy who's just a kickboxer.
Yeah. And you go through Rosenstrike's record, like we've heard about Daukaus's, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pedigree. Every time he's been on a fight card, he just never has used it. Like you said, Curtis Blades took him down, Rosenstrike down 3 times. That's understandable. Curtis Blades, best wrestler in the division. Cyril Gahn took him down twice. Cyril Gahn, absolute beast. Alistair Overeem took him down twice. Overeem, pretty good wrestler. Rosenstrike won in the 5th round, which was a weird stoppage. But Junior Albini took him down. The Diaper Man took him down 2 times. Big Boy in the Diaper took him down 2 times. If Daukaus chooses to wrestle here, he's going to get him down at least once. So I'm avoiding that big counter strike. I'm getting him up against the cage. I'm doing some cheeky trips. Rosenstrike's a massive dude. He's not going to, if you trip him, he's going down. You know what I mean? Got to wrestle here. If not, it's going to get knocked out.
That's my thinking, right? Like, and to save your job, get a safe win. Because if he goes out there and he's content with staying at the end of Rosenstrike's punches, Rosenstrike has the best KO chance on the card. That's his best path to victory against a guy who's been knocked out back-to-back times. And in all 3 of Daukaus's losses within his career, 2 in the UFC, 1 outside, he's been hit with a big shot and rocked and dropped. So it's a fight I'm getting to. Let's just call it like that. Heavyweight MMA, hard to avoid unless it's going to be a sloppy decision. I don't foresee that happening in this bout. I think the under 2.5 is something to target.
Yeah, I agree. Before I see your super chat there, Liker, just got to talk about getting a MMA free trial for New Year's Eve only. If you've never had a Stokastic membership, you can get MMA free for 3 days. It's a risk-free trial. Get you full access to everything that we have to offer. Projections, DFS ownership, top fighter tools, optimal lineup percentages, much more. You can join the community. You can test drive everything for free. If you've ever been on the fence about paying for an MMA subscription with Stokastic, this is the best way to try it out. Click the link in the description below. You'll get a free trial for 3 days. If you like it, and we know you will, you can continue the membership. That's all you got to do. Click the link in the description below. Get your 3-day free trial. Liker with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Since you know him, Pete, how well does Jared Gordon handle high-level grappling in bad positions? Is he a good hand fighter and good with wrist control?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll tell you, when I train with Gordon, Gordon's good. Like, Gordon's well-rounded. I think if you had to point to any weakness, I think it would be submission defense, but that's not anything that happened in training. It's more so like what we've seen, Grant Dawson, and, anytime that somebody's a good wrestler with good hands, they're going to be able to get out of a lot of positions. I think that Paddy the Baddy's submission skills are pretty damn sneaky, as evidence in the Jordan Levitt performance. Like, you see Jordan Levitt get submitted and look like he's not good on the ground. It's kind of, it's pretty damn interesting. So I think that Gordon can wrestle out of a lot of positions. When somebody takes your back, though, no matter what, it's very tough to avoid. You know what I mean? So, like, outside of a rear naked choke, I really, really like Jared Gordon's chances.
Yeah, and that Grant Dawson fight, Dawson took him down 7 times. Dawson's an energizer bunny. Like, I feel like it's going to be a similar matchup, but if Dawson, I think Dawson's better than Paddy Pimblett from like a pure wrestling like standpoint. Like, I don't want to go and just bash Paddy Pimblett. I think he's a lot of fun and he's very, very skilled, but like Dawson has a nice wrestling pedigree. He's kind of like Billy Q up at 155, like just this high pace, like Eric Gordon, man, if he offensive wrestles, I think he can get Paddy Pimblett down too. The thing is, like, he needs to start throwing when he gets the fighters down there.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. It's a fight I like, right? Yeah. Like, I like the Gordon fight because he wins most of his fights via decision. And I think if you stretch Paddy the Baddy over 15 minutes, that's your best way to beat him outside of just like knocking him out. So yeah, I'm interested in the matchup.
Yeah, let's see. What other fights do we got that we haven't really talked about here? We talked, like TJ Brown, Eric Silva, man. I want to get behind TJ Brown, but man, is he untrustworthy as well?
Yes, he is.
But so is Eric Silva. This could be an absolute sloppy fight here.
It is, yeah, it could be. So, like, naturally, when I look at things on paper, I text Jason and I'm like, okay, this is my initial on paper thoughts. And then I start watching tape and I do a little deep dive. And then sometimes I'm completely switching up what I see on paper. When I go and I go back and I look at TJ Brown, how many times he's been dropped in the Contender Series and in the UFC, once on the Contender Series against Dylan Lockhart, once against Kai Kamaka, and once previously against Shailan Nurdanbeka. And I see what Eric Silva does. Eric Silva chops legs really, really well, and TJ Brown's super susceptible to leg kicks. He hits really hard and has fantastic jiu-jitsu. TJ Brown gets finished in a lot of his losses, not necessarily in the UFC, but regionally. It was kind of like an Achilles heel. If you could threaten him with a submission, kind of like how Jordan Griffin did back in 2020, like he's
Such
apt
a weird
to tap.
submission too.
So, like, yeah, I think that Eric Silva is in a sneaky, sneaky spot. He might be one of my favorite unknown fighters on the card, just because TJ Brown's going to be reckless in there, and then you have all those, the factor of James Krause. He's been spending some time with James Krause, not completely with his camp. He splits his camp at Glory MMA and in Arkansas, but like still, you're losing like your main strategist, a part of your camp. It has to mean something.
Yeah. And man, that Jordan Griffin fight was brutal. I was on TJ Brown there. He was well on his way to break the slate. He had 7 takedowns and 91 strikes in 8 minutes, and then he got guillotined from side bottom control. Jordan Griffin was in bottom side control and guillotined him from there. That is not the best spot to get guillotined, but yeah, I agree. I do like Eric Silva here. TJ Brown has so much upside for DFS. He's just so untrustworthy. Let's talk about PrizePicks for a second. Got to get that read in before we get off the air because we're sponsored by them. Thank you very much, PrizePicks, for sponsoring us. It's a daily prop-based contest. There's no sharks, no optimizers, or mass entries. You're not playing against other people like DFS. You're just playing against yourself. 5-player lineups can get up to 10x your entry fees. Use your knowledge of multiple sports with cross-sport entries. You can do some UFC, you can do some NFL, you can do some NBA in the same contest. Click the link in the description below to get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to a $100 deposit match bonus when you sign up and make a deposit with PrizePicks. Couple minutes left here. We'll take some more questions. Alex Morono stepping up on short notice against Santiago Ponzinibbio at catchweight 180. I think this is a pretty good matchup for Ponzinibbio. Morono, he's game, as you saw, taking this fight. I just worry about his chin here, but Ponzinibbio, not exactly, I don't want to say like his fight IQ is bad. Like you saw when he came back from those awful injuries that he had, he got absolutely flatlined by Li Jingliang. And then, he lost 2 consecutive split decisions. I think Morono's in this fight as long as he's still standing.
It's a weird one, right? Because naturally you have anybody stepping up on short notice and you're constantly going to want to pick the guy who had the full camp. I know Morono trains year round. He lives the lifestyle. He coaches, he trains. That's really the only thing he cares about. So he's constantly in the gym training jiu-jitsu, boxing, MMA. Morono surprised me a little bit with how big he looked on the scale. Not from a muscular standpoint, but just from he looks solid. He doesn't look out of shape. He just looks solid. And I constantly thought that Santiago Ponzinibbio was going to dwarf him and kind of like make him look completely small. They look pretty even from a physicality standpoint. So I think Ponzinibbio is a sucker for a right hand, and I think Alex Morono is a sucker for an uppercut. So this could be a banger. Morono's on a really, really hot streak, on like a 4-fight win streak. Let me pull it up. Whereas like Ponzinibbio is clawing to maintain his job, and 1-3 in his past 4. Only decision win over Miguel Baeza, which has not really aged well. I thought Baeza was decent. And then we have Alex Morono, who's really caught fire, like absolutely caught fire in the UFC and started to find some success. He's on a 4-fight win streak over Donald Cerrone, David Zavada, Mickey Gall, Matthew Semmelsberger. This Semmelsberger one is where I'm like, Semmelsberger is kind of like a knockoff brand of Santiago Ponzinibbio, big striker. You know what I mean? And yeah, I thought Morono surprised me in that one. through extremely high volume, landed 106 significant strikes, attempted 4 takedowns, but he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I don't hate Morono from an underdog standpoint at all.
Yeah, I feel like this, like, Morono, it's always worrying me that it's going to end inside the distance early, but like going through his record, like he's only really been flatlined by Chaos Williams, and Chaos Williams could put anyone to sleep if he's not sleeping himself. So yeah, like I feel like this one is going to be one of those like close round bangers that, you know, you see a split decision 29-28. I feel bad about Ponzinibbio, man. He was in the top, like almost in the top 5 after the Neil Magny win. And then he just had those awful, I think like staph infections. He had to get surgeries, and he just has not looked the same. Yeah.
It's sad, man. The injuries completely derail tons of people's careers. His knockout defeats do too. You know what I mean? Once that chin's gone, it's really gone.
Yeah. Ji Liang. That was a brutal knockout too. But yeah, that should wrap it about up. Let me just ask you one final question here. What's one fighter you worried about not having enough exposure to today?
One fighter I worry about not having enough exposure to today. It's a great question, by the way. It might be, for me, I think I'd have to say Ilia Topuria, just because regionally he was such a finisher, and we know of his Greco-Roman background. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, super skilled everywhere, absolute finisher, hunts the body when he's striking. But like, we're desperate for underdogs. If I didn't have to pick this fight, I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, but we have to pick the fight. So I'm worried about Topuria kind of hitting him to the body and just, you know, stopping the show right then and there.
That was my answer as well. So I'll give a different answer. I think it's going to be Joaquin Buckley.
Okay.
Because I just, like you said, like you have that feeling that Buckley's just going to come in and bully Curtis. I have that same thing here. I do like Curtis though, if he survives. But coming up right after us at the top of the hour, NBA Deeper Dive at 5 p.m. with Terry and Ryan, then NBA Live Before Lock at 6 p.m. with Greg and Gundacker. We're out of here. Make sure to smash that like button if you like getting these shows for free. Hit that like, subscribe. Thank you very much. Good luck, everybody. Thank you for having me today, Pete, and good luck tonight.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hit that like button, and we'll see you next time. Appreciate you.